Did you know that Hollywood's golden age wasn't as glamorous as it seemed? Behind the glittering lights and red carpets, the industry was built on secrecy, control, and scandal. Powerful studios controlled every part of a star's life, covering up crimes, manipulating careers, and destroying those who didn't obey. Today, we expose the dark truths hidden behind the biggest names of that era, the golden age of Hollywood. An overview: Hollywood's golden age, spanning from the 1920s to the 1960s, is remembered for its glamorous stars, lavish films, and the rise of legendary studios. It was a time when actors were larger than life, their images carefully crafted to be adored by millions. However, behind the glitz and the carefully controlled publicity, there was a much darker reality. The entertainment industry was built on strict control, manipulation, and in many cases, outright exploitation. At the heart of this system were the major studios: MGM, Warner Bros., Paramount, 20th Century Fox, and RKO. These studios controlled nearly every aspect of filmmaking, from production and distribution to the lives of their stars. Actors were not just employees, they were property of the studios, bound by long-term contracts that dictated what they could do, where they could go, and even who they could date or marry. One of the most brutal aspects of Hollywood's golden age was the treatment of young stars. Child actors such as Judy Garland and Mickey Rooney were forced into grueling work schedules, often with little regard for their health. Image management was everything. Studios would cover up crimes, arrange fake relationships, and manufacture scandals to keep audiences interested. Another tool used to control Hollywood was the Hays Code, a strict set of moral guidelines enforced from the 1930s to the 1960s. This code dictated what films could and could not show. But more importantly, it was used to police the personal lives of actors. The studio system, crafting stars and mythologies. The golden age of Hollywood was built on the power of the studio system. Unlike today, when actors have the freedom to choose their roles and negotiate contracts, studios in the 1920s to 1960s controlled every aspect of a star's career. They dictated what movies actors starred in, how they behaved in public, and even who they were allowed to date. It was a carefully designed machine, creating larger-than-life legends while hiding the darker truths behind the silver screen. Under the studio system, actors were signed to long-term contracts, often lasting 7 years or more. These contracts gave studios near complete control over their careers. If a star refused to take a role, they could be suspended without pay or blacklisted. The studios also dictated actors' public personas. If an actor had a personality or lifestyle that didn't fit the image the studio wanted, they were forced to change. Some were given new names, new backgrounds, and even new accents. One of the most extreme examples was the transformation of Lucille Lasher into Joan Crawford. MGM executives decided that her original name was too unattractive for stardom, so they changed it. Similarly, Norma Jean Baker became Marilyn Monroe with her entire identity reshaped to fit Hollywood's ideal of a blonde bombshell. Rock Hudson, a leading man in the 1950s, was forced into a fake marriage to hide the fact that he was gay, as the studio feared it would ruin his career. For female stars, the studio system was even more controlling. Actresses were expected to maintain a glamorous appearance at all times. They were put on extreme diets, given strict beauty routines, and often forced to undergo cosmetic procedures. Some were told to change their hair color, fix their teeth, or even undergo painful surgeries to fit Hollywood's beauty standards. Studios also controlled their relationships, arranging marriages to boost careers or cover up scandals. While the studio system created some of the most legendary stars in film history, it also took a heavy toll on those who lived under its control. Many actors suffered from extreme stress, addiction, and mental health struggles due to the pressure to be perfect. Some were discarded when they were no longer profitable, left to deal with the damage on their own. The role of fixers in scandal management. In Hollywood's golden age, scandals had the power to destroy careers. Studios invested millions in their stars, and any hint of controversy could damage their box office value. To maintain their carefully crafted images, studios employed fixers, powerful men who worked behind the scenes to clean up messes, cover up crimes, and protect Hollywood's biggest stars. These fixers were ruthless, using bribery, intimidation, and even violence to keep the industry's darkest secrets hidden. One of the most infamous fixers was Eddie Manx, a high-ranking executive at MGM. Manx had deep connections with the police, the press, and even organized crime. When an MGM star got into trouble, Manx made sure it never reached the public. If a star was caught in a scandalous affair, he arranged for the press to look the other way. If a celebrity was involved in a serious crime, he found ways to bury the evidence. Manx was even rumored to have covered up deaths, including the mysterious death of Superman actor George Reeves. Howard Strickling, another MGM fixer, specialized in public relations cover-ups. He ensured that scandals were rewritten into more acceptable narratives. If an unmarried actress became pregnant, he arranged for quiet adoptions or forced abortions. If a leading man was arrested for drunk driving, he paid off the police and reporters to keep it out of the newspapers. His job was to make sure that Hollywood's golden image remained untarnished, no matter what happened behind closed doors. Some of the most shocking cases involved crimes that would have ruined careers if exposed. In the 1930s, actor Wallace Beer was allegedly involved in the fatal beating of comedian Ted Healy. However, the case disappeared from the headlines almost immediately. Studio fixers stepped in, and no charges were ever filed. Similarly, when Errol Flynn was accused of statutory rape in the 1940s, Warner Bros. Launched an aggressive campaign to discredit the accusers. Flynn's reputation took a temporary hit, but the studio ensured that he remained a major star. Fixers were also responsible for controlling the personal lives of Hollywood's biggest names. Homosexuality was considered unacceptable in the Golden Age, so actors like Rock Hudson and Tab Hunter were forced into fake relationships with women to keep up appearances. Some stars like Judy Garland were pushed into marriages that the studio arranged to maintain a wholesome image. But fixers didn't just cover up scandals, they also created them when needed. If a star's career was fading, a carefully planned scandal could bring them back into the spotlight. Leaked secret romances, fake rivalries, and dramatic feuds were all tools used to manipulate public perception. Studios understood that audiences loved drama, and they used it to their advantage. The Hays Code, maintaining moral purity. In the early days of Hollywood, movies pushed boundaries with daring themes, racy scenes, and controversial storylines. But as films grew more popular, moral watchdogs and religious groups began calling for stricter content control. In response, Hollywood implemented the Hays Code in 1934, a rigid set of guidelines that dictated what could and couldn't be shown on screen. While the code was meant to protect audiences from immoral influences, it also forced actors, writers, and directors to hide the darker realities of life both on and off the screen. The Hays Code, officially known as the Motion Picture Production Code, was created to enforce moral purity in Hollywood films. It banned anything that was considered too suggestive, violent, or inappropriate. There were strict rules against nudity, excessive kissing, and even depictions of crime that could be seen as glorifying criminals. Certain topics such as homosexuality, interracial relationships, and political corruption were completely off limits. Instead, movies had to promote traditional family values, reinforce authority figures, and ensure that the good guys always won. This strict censorship had a huge impact on the careers of many Golden Age stars. Some actors like Mae West, whose films were known for their sharp wit and sexual humor, found themselves heavily censored or pushed out of Hollywood altogether. Others had to drastically change their public images to fit the industry's new moral standards. Studios often forced actors into wholesome roles that matched what the Hays Code allowed, regardless of their personal preferences or talents. For many actors, the Hays Code didn't just shape their on-screen performances, it also controlled their personal lives. Studios feared that any scandal could damage an actor's reputation and lead to public backlash. As a result, some actors were pressured into hiding their true identities. Gay actors were forced into fake marriages to avoid suspicion, while others were silenced if they spoke out against industry corruption. Kirk Douglas' heroism and allegations. Kirk Douglas was one of the most celebrated actors of Hollywood's Golden Age. With his rugged looks, commanding presence, and intense performances, he became a symbol of strength and resilience on screen. Best known for films like Spartacus, 1960, Paths of Glory, 1957, and Ace in the Hole, 1951. Douglas built an image of a heroic and principled man. However, behind this powerful screen presence lay a much more complicated reality, one filled with rumors, dark allegations, and an unsettling legacy. Douglas was a key player in breaking the Hollywood blacklist. In Spartacus, he openly credited blacklisted screenwriter Dalton Trumbo, helping to end the era of McCarthy-era censorship. This act earned him PR